Hello, this is Professor James Strickler, and this is a course in American government. With this lesson, we begin Unit 3, American Federalism, and this is Lesson 1, Defining Federalism. In this lesson, you'll learn about the concept of federalism, about unitary systems of government, confederal systems of government, federal systems of government, and about the idea of divided sovereignty. In a previous lesson in this course, we introduced the idea of federalism. We introduced it as a limitation on the powers of a national government. And at that time, it was explained as the idea of dividing power between two levels of government, with a national government having power over certain functions of what a government does, and state governments having power over certain other functions of government. In this unit, we'll be taking a deeper look at this concept of federalism, see what it means in the American context, and how it's evolved over the course of American history. Now, to begin that process of taking a deeper look, we need to first examine the structure of a nation, or what we might also call a country, or even more generally call a central government. We're talking about a single government that has control over a certain geographic area. Now, typically, the government of a nation is divided into smaller units to make administration of that country easier. In the United States of America, those smaller units are referred to as states. Now, as explained earlier in the course, that this is sort of an accident of American history, that term state used correctly refers to an entire country or a nation, or refers to the area controlled by a central government. But because in the United States of America there were 13 separate little countries called states that then joined together to form the single United States of America, those subunits continue to be called states. So yes, we can refer to these smaller units of government as states in the American context. They go by other names in other countries around the world. Names such as province, or territory, or region, or department, or municipality. Whatever the name is that's assigned to these smaller units, just recognize that they exist. That an entire country is typically divided up into smaller units for convenient governmental administration. Just as we can more generally refer to that government of the whole country as a central government, we can more generally refer to these smaller pieces of the country as subnational governments. Okay, so now that we know how government power may be divided geographically and have that in our mind, we can begin to consider the more important question. And that is how power is divided between these types of government. How much power is given to a central government, how much government power is given to the subnational units of government, and who's really in control of the power. Now, to understand this, what we need to do is, first of all, consider the type of government that is most common around the world. The most common form of government is called a unitary system. In a unitary system, you have a central government represented by this large light blue circle, and then you have subnational governments that are formed within it, represented by the smaller, slightly darker blue circles. And notice that the way that this is illustrated here is that those subnational governments exist entirely within the central government. Now, what is being symbolized by that is that in a unitary system, the central government is entirely supreme. And what I mean by that is that it creates these subnational units to help it in administering the country. Because it creates them, it can destroy them, get rid of them. Because it creates them, and assigns them what powers they have. And it can withdraw those powers as it sees fit. The unitary government over the whole country, the central government, holds complete and absolute power over all the functions of government within that country. So yes, it may set up smaller units. It could even call them states. but they are completely at the mercy of the central government. All their power is derived from there. They can't do anything really without the central government's permission. This is the typical way that governments are organized in countries around the world. Here are some examples depicted on this slide. China, France, South Africa. A vast majority of countries have this type of unitary government. It's called unitary because there's really one government for the whole country, regardless of how it may be divided up for convenience sake. An alternative system of government that goes the other direction is what we call a confederal system. Now, the way it's diagrammed out here, you still have a central government, and you still have smaller governments, but their relationship is completely opposite of in a unitary system. Matter of fact, it's so opposite that rather than calling the smaller governments subnational governments, I refer to them as state governments on this slide because that's what they really are in the proper sense of the word state. These are independent countries that then join together to cooperate on certain things and create a central government to help them do so. But notice that the way it's illustrated on this slide is that the central government exists entirely within the boundaries of the state governments. And what is symbolized by this is that in a confederal system, it's the state governments that are supreme. They create the central government to conveniently do things for them, not the other way around. And because they create the central government, they can destroy the central government. They can give the central government new powers. They can take powers away from the central government. In this system, the states are supreme. Some examples of this in the world are on the right here, we have the flag of the American Confederacy during the time of the Civil War, the Confederate States of America. And on the left, we have the flag of the European Union, the current confederacy of countries in Europe. Now, a confederal system where the states, these small countries, have control of the central government is both rare and it's unstable. Now, the reason it's unstable is that when the component pieces of this confederacy are each independent countries that can go do their own thing if they want. If they ever disagree about things, they simply go their separate ways and do things differently. And eventually them doing things differently becomes severe enough that it really isn't a viable union anymore. So historically, when confederacies have been created, they've only lasted a short time and fallen apart. And we may be seeing the beginning of that with the European Union, as the Great Britain just recently voted to leave the European Union. Now, a third way to set up government is called a federal system. In this diagram, you can see it illustrated by the central government not surrounding the states, as in the unitary system, and also the states or subnational governments not entirely surrounding the central government, as in the confederal system. Now, what's being symbolized by this is that neither the central government has control of the states, nor the states have complete control of the central government. They are, in a sense, independent from each other. Yes, they have relationships, which are symbolized by the overlapping of the circles here. But one does not entirely answer to the other, nor the other way around. Examples of a federal system in the world are countries such as the United Arab Emirates, Switzerland, and Australia. But the first federal system to come into existence was the United States of America at its founding. That's where this new form of government called federalism was invented. Under a federal system, the central government is supreme only in its area that it's been assigned to function in, while the state governments are supreme in their areas of function. Neither one of them entirely answers to the other. They do not create each other. They do not destroy each other. They do not assign each other powers. So in federalism, you can say that sovereign power has been divided between these two levels of government. But saying it that way, as we sort of simplified, it was said in a simplified way when we first introduced this idea in a previous lesson of the course, saying it that way introduces a theoretical problem. And that is, how can sovereignty possibly be divided in one country? Remember, sovereignty is the idea that there's someone within a political community that has ultimate political power, that there's no one above them to tell them what to do. And to be completely on top with no one above you to tell you what to do, there can only be one sovereign within a particular political community. So within a country, there should not be multiple sovereigns. Well, the answer to this dilemma for federalism is that neither the national government nor the state governments are actually sovereign. Instead, it's we, the people, that are sovereign. This is the notion of popular sovereignty that's been mentioned many times in this course. We, the people, are sovereign, and we, the people, then assign certain functions of government to our local state governments, or we assign certain functions of government to the central national government. But both of them exist at the pleasure of the people. We create them, we destroy them, we assign them powers, we take powers away. They do not have control of each other. So if we go back to our federal system diagram that we looked at just a few moments ago, it's really missing a piece. That is, we should add an even larger circle that encompasses both the state and the national governments, that represents we the people. We the people are the true sovereign, who then assign certain tasks in our lives to the state governments and assign certain tasks in our lives to the central government. But we have to be careful about how we draw this diagram, because the way it's drawn, it implies that the collective people of the United States have assigned power to this state and this state and this state and this state. But that's not the way it actually is. Because if it was that way, then the collective people of the United States could take power away from the government of a particular state. So the way the federal system was created to begin with in the United States of America was with the people of each state individually being able to assign power to their state government and then assign some other power collectively to the national government. So in creation of the national government, the states work collectively. In creation of their state governments, they work separately. Now, this is a little bit of a complicated diagram, but this is probably the best way to visually illustrate what a federal system is like, particularly in the United States of America. So now let's review what we've learned in this lesson. What is divided in federalism? Is it the geography of a country, the functions of the government in that country, the rights of the people, or foreign relations? The correct answer is the functions of government are divided. Who is supreme in a unitary system? Is it the subnational units of government? Is it the central government? Is it a treaty alliance with other countries? Or is it the major political party? In a unitary system, the central government is supreme and gets to boss the other units of government around. Who is supreme in a confederal system of government? Is it the constituent states that make up the country? Is it a treaty organization that the country is part of? Is it the central government over the country? Or is no one supreme in a confederal system? The correct answer is that the states that make up the membership of the Confederacy are supreme. So what is the theoretical problem of federalism? Is it having too many levels of power? Is it that states can't be combined? Is it that states can't be destroyed? Or is it that sovereignty can't be divided? The correct answer is that sovereignty can't be divided. There still needs to be someone ultimately in charge. So, who is supreme then in a federal system? Is it the constituent states, a treaty organization, the central government, or we the people? In a federal system, we, the people, are sovereign, and then they assign certain powers to the central government and to the subnational governments. So next, our lesson will be about the benefits of federalism. That'll be lesson 2 from Unit 3.